Hello. Hi, everyone. We're actually 1 minute early. Stragglers are going to be coming in. But I just wanted to say hi to everyone and start to kick off this session. My name's Molly Chambers. I'm a project development manager from National Energy Action. And we've got a great session planned for today. I'm going to read a few notes off my phone because I had some printer mishap this morning. So I'm not playing Candy Crush or anything. I'm actually reading some notes. So first of all, thank you all for coming. It's lovely to see so many of you here and interested in this topic. I'm sure you'll know why we thought this was useful to talk about. But just to give you a little bit of grounding, I'm cautious about bombarding you with statistics. Sometimes I think we get over-bombarded with them and they lose some impact. I feel, off I've been motioned to there. I feel that there is some space at the front. If anyone's standing, there are 2 seats at the front, and there's no audience participation that I'm aware of. So do feel free. I sometimes think statistics can lose their impact, and I also think in the work that we all do together, we get a sense of what is true, even if the statistics don't always bear it out, or we can't always get the exact thing that we want to take away from it. However, to give a bit of grounding, just a few that I picked up doing research for this presentation. So when we talk about soaring inflation and increase of cost of living, it's really important to remember that weathering the same storm does not mean being in the same boat. Some of us are much more insulated from wild seas, to continue the tortured metaphors, than others. So 1.8 million unpaid carers in the UK are in fuel poverty. Scope has identified extra costs to households with a disability and shown that 21% of those households have stated they've gone without essential medication and treatment. 18% of white British adults are struggling to keep their home warm, but that compares to 44% of Black, African, Caribbean, Black British and Asian British households, and that's identified by the ONS. Systems that don't protect potentially vulnerable customers end up exacerbating inequalities. So within our sector, demand for support has skyrocketed and made it more challenging to get that bespoke, person-centered support. And barriers are often unintentional, but in many cases there's an assumption that support will be provided, and that stops people from reaching out in the first place. Clients who can't advocate for themselves will fall through the gaps, and we know this. Now, winter always brings those discrepancies into the foreground. This winter was the first winter without a universal winter fuel payment for pensioners, and it's down a long line of winters where we've seen inequalities increasing through COVID-19, a cost of living crisis, and of course the price cap increase. It's also no surprise that in this room, further building blocks are built around information sharing, communication, and trust. Solutions are needed to be sensitive to individual client circumstances, and the teams at all levels of client interactions, from suppliers, GDNs, DNOs, and advice agencies, need to feel empowered that they have a range of support that's proactive and nuanced for the clients. Stigma, judgment, and bureaucracy are enemies to an empowered energy market. These are some of the themes we're going to explore today. The way the session's going to work is I'm going to stop talking in just a second. Our lovely panelists are going to speak, and then there'll be plenty of time to go for ideas in the room. I just wanted to say a few words about some of the work that National Energy Action is doing in this space. So our Warming Communities work identified clients with multiple disadvantage in the energy market, and we work to reach out to those partner organisations who were already trusted to those clients. We weren't prescriptive about what vulnerabilities look like because fuel poverty looks different in every community and area in the UK, and we trusted local teams to forge the right relationships. And through partnership and collaboration, we provided bespoke support to those partners. We designed interventions with those clients and teams in mind, and we tried to increase capacity within the sector as opposed to assuming that we were the organisation best set to deliver that support. More insight and learning will be shared about that programme over time, so really looking forward to sharing some of our learnings onto yourselves. I'm going to ask first, Dave, if you'd like to speak for your section. So Dave is Director of Partnerships at Lightning Reach, a financial support portal. He enables a huge range of personalised support to take place. A massive variety of service users come onto their platform, and they're working to make sure it's even more accessible.
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to see so many people in room 3. Back in my DJ days, this would be the busiest room 3 I ever would have performed in front of. So nice to meet you all. So I'm Dave, Director of Partnerships at Lightning Reach. And for those who don't know us, we are a FinTech for Good platform that helps to connect people to personalised financial support all in one place. So we work with charities, councils, housing providers, utility providers, benefit integrations to enable people to build lasting financial resilience and well-being. And we've heard a lot today that there's about 3 or 6 million people in fuel poverty, but actually behind that there's about 20 million financially vulnerable people in the UK. And so that's basically why we exist, because it is such a complex landscape. And so what I did last night, thinking on how to prepare for today's session, was to get ChatGPT to help me kind of illustrate the challenge that we have in front of us. So I asked ChatGPT, show me a person that is in financial hardship and struggling to find support. And I think it really illustrates it nicely. There's a person there, quite a gloomy setting, hands on his head, a maze with not really any right direction to turn. It looks like an insurmountable challenge, signs pointing in multiple directions. And I think this really illustrates the complexity of the landscape that face so many people today. Quite simply, if you're facing the daily struggles of poverty, you just don't know which way to turn. You don't know what you don't know. And then when you do find bits of support that you might see out there as well, we know that there are a lot of barriers that get in people's way. So it could be, for example, the stigma of asking for support in the first place. We work with a lot of military veterans, for example, and I remember speaking to a person called Luke, who served in the Army and the RAF, and he said to me, I'm just not the sort of bloke to ask for help. I'm the one that's meant to give help. So how do we reach and engage people like Luke? When it's thinking about the way that services are actually accessed as well, we've heard a lot today about single-parent households are probably the most at risk of fuel poverty. But if your service can only be engaged if you ring up the phone 9 to 5, that doesn't really help someone who's got a hectic daily schedule. How is a single mum going to get in touch with your service if the only way they can engage with you is in a community centre or ringing up the phone? We also know young people hate picking up the phone as well. So how are you going to speak to the younger demographic that are also struggling today? We also heard a little bit today about trust, and we know that there is a lack of trust in certain institutions as well. If you are in rent arrears, you might not feel comfortable speaking to your housing provider. If you are in energy arrears, you might not feel comfortable speaking to your energy provider. If you're in council tax arrears, you might not be feeling comfortable to speak to your local authority as well. And again, sprinkled on top of that, the kind of barriers of complex application forms that are going back and forth and needing help today, but it takes months to receive that support as well. So all of this ladders up to really the problem that we have some quite amazing support that all of you will give to individuals, but people miss out on that. And so also organisations can struggle with the kind of admin and outreach of also delivering that support too. So to explain a little bit about what we're kind of doing in the mix as well, Lightning Reach essentially enables people to find tailored financial support all in one place. So people can sign up, they create a profile, they get matched to support, and then are able to then apply directly to some of the partnerships that we then work with. So we have about 2,500 schemes across lots of different sectors on Lightning Reach to really build people up, to build that lasting financial resilience and well-being. Through this process now, we've been going for about 3 years. We have 175,000 people now using Lightning Reach, and we've helped to facilitate nearly £20 million worth of support. And the way that we have built Lightning Reach is to really make it very easy and accessible for people to engage in services through a digital pathway. I heard something the other day about, like, does your service pass the bus test? Like, can you engage in a service on the way to work, sat on the bus? And so that's the way we've built Lightning Reach. It's mobile first, it's simple language, it's big buttons, it's very easy to navigate. People can come back to it as well. And then through this work, what we've then built up is the ability to then proactively engage people with targeted support as well. And so with that 175,000 user base that we then have, we can then proactively engage them with relevant support that might come on our portal to then make sure that we're being proactive of going them to that support rather than them just coming to us as well. And a few examples of how we're kind of testing and learning and being kind of data-driven, and some of the work that we then do as well is we've been working with Edinburgh Council. We went through a test of printing off like 2,000 flyers and dropping them off at community centres and different bits and bobs. And we had one person sign up to Lightning Reach from 2,000 flyers. And we compare that to our work with the Fuel Bank Foundation, whereby on the same day when someone receives a Fuel Bank voucher, they instantly get text the Lightning Reach link, and 50% of people who get sent that text then sign up to Lightning Reach to engage with support, and we've helped thousands of people within the few months that we've been working with them. Kind of just leading on to how can we be more proactive in engaging with that as well. So I also just wanted to share some of the work we've been doing with Yes Energy in the energy space as well. So we knew from our database, again, the kind of profile data of individuals that might benefit from Yes Energy's really fantastic support. There were 2,300 people in Yorkshire who were struggling with energy costs. So we did a proactive campaign to engage them, saying, Dave, we think you're eligible for this support. Click here to apply, and we provide a really quick pathway into Yes Energy, which took people less than 3 minutes to apply into. And we helped 200 people in 3 weeks get, on average, a £600 financial gain from Yes Energy in that time frame. And so it's thinking about how can we build on those sort of ways of reaching out to individuals in need. So to kind of close a little bit, I guess the kind of 3 things to maybe kind of take away and kind of build on. I think what this room really shows and what we've been speaking about today is the power of really bringing in and collaborating across industries, across sectors, across organisations. Lightning Reach would be nothing without the partners that we also work with to deliver that service. And so it's kind of building on that to streamline and provide access to support. It's about being proactive, like we know who needs support, how can we reach them, and then how can we provide different ways of people engaging that support. For some people, that will be community centres. For some people, that will be phone calls. And for some people, that will be a digital pathway as well. So the last thing to close on, I also then asked ChatGPT, show me a person that has found support. And this is what it came back with. So it showed me a man, his hands up, the maze is separated, he can see the light, he can see the sky, and there's greenery. And most importantly, he can see a way through. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. I'm just going to quickly introduce our next speaker. So Lee is here from IncomeMAX. He is the CEO and founder. And since 2009, they've been providing to support people who are struggling to pay for essentials and going without due to lack of funds. So Lee?
Thanks very much. Hey guys, how you doing? I always feel the need to lean forward to the microphone. I really mustn't do that. I'm not as cool as Dave. I'm definitely not bringing me DJ decks in. But I am, like Molly, going to hit you with some stats, and I promise you they're not going to be statistics that bore you in the slightest. Actually, they're stuff that we really need to start taking pretty seriously, I think, and you know, I think that's why you guys are all here today. My name's Lee Healey. I'm the founder and CEO of IncomeMAX. We're a social enterprise. We help families across the UK to maximise their income. Founded us in 2009, and can you believe it, I've been working in this field for 30 years now. DWP or DSS, I'm showing my age now, back in the 90s. Then I moved into the charitable advice sector. I was the guy that came around and filled out your forms in your home. And then in 2009, I've been doing benefits advice for so long, and I thought, how could we provide benefits and income maximisation advice to people across the country and make it sustainable? And to do that, we partnered with corporations across the UK. We're just about to take on our 40th staff member. We work with EDF Energy, OVO, eGas and Electric, Utilita, a whole nationwide building society, an incredible list of partners that fund us to provide human-to-human income maximisation support year on year to customers. And we've found about £50+ million worth of extra income so far. Okay, so far so good, but let's be honest, there's a lot of work to do. And that's what drives me on every day, and I know it drives you guys on. All right, let's hit you with some stats. 11.4 million people in relative poverty before housing costs, 14.3 million after housing costs accounted for. That's either 1 in 5 or 1 in 6. That sounds crazy to me. That's 3.2 or 4.3 million children, depending whether you factor in housing costs, 7.2 million of food insecure households, 1.8 million households experience destitution, 1.5 million emergency food parcels were given out last year. Now, to me, I just think these statistics are crazy. We can all come along today and, you know, and kind of go, oh, you know, this is, you know, we can change poverty, but it's a real monster of a problem, okay? And I've been doing this for 30 years, and so there's always been a hardcore of millions of people that experience poverty, destitution, and all of the difficulties. And let's be honest, it's been a right roller coaster over the last 15 years, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay. But then we know that there's £23 billion worth of unclaimed financial support every year. That's what Dave and myself and Citizens Advice and NEA and all the guys, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that money, 23 billion, not million, 23 billion pounds worth of financial support into the pockets of families every single year. And as I said, drop in the ocean, 50 million for IncomeMAX. You guys will have your own stats. But the point is income maximisation. You know, we know that it works. And the reason I went down the route of humans is because I don't think you can beat it when you have a human voice. You know, and I'm going to tell you some of those human voices in just a second. Okay. Joseph Rowntree Foundation. Do you guys know that there's a poverty event on Thursday, 10:30 in the morning, online event? Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Poverty 2025. Please go find it. Please get on it. Because obviously JRF, they're doing a lot of anti-poverty work. They've come up with an essentials guarantee because they know that the social security system doesn't cover all of the costs that people need in order to survive, including for their energy bills. The relative cost of that, implementing the essentials guarantee, 19 billion quid. Dear government, 19 billion pound, like they're going to give us that at this moment in time. The government want to cut welfare budgets, which isn't a surprise because I'm now going to give you another number, 2010. Cameron and Osborne, with a coalition government, started significant cuts to welfare spending. You guys can probably name most of them. I'm going to. Uprating, freezes, cuts to help for housing costs, changes to means-tested benefits, council tax support reduced, reducing help for sick and disabled people, the benefit cap, social fund changes, sanctions, child benefit. I'll get really emotional when I'm talking about this stuff because it was a terrible, terrible time because up until that moment, you could claim benefits for the support you needed, and more often than not, it would actually provide the support you needed. So they eroded that. Here we are, 2025. So we've gone through that huge period of austerity with the welfare benefits, really the system being cut to pieces. Then you have Brexit, then you have the COVID pandemic, then you've got energy price rises, the cost of living crisis, wars, climate and biodiversity. Look, I'm not trying to depress you, I swear. But the point I'm making really is that this is really real. So we have to leave Liverpool today knowing, yeah, this is really real and the work that we're doing is absolutely valid. But it's not going to be solved by a billionaire and a billionaire. It's an endemic problem within the United Kingdom that poverty exists. Okay, I'll try not to get emotional because when I sort of include the team and what they talk about, it's really hard because we help a lot of people face-to-face, by face-to-face on the phone because we're a national organisation. I wish we could help them face-to-face. But when I asked them this morning, I said, how are your customers feeling this year in winter? Because bear in mind, we're looking at experiences of winter. Desperate for any support that be given, that's Jess. Resigned and anxious, frightened of the future, mix of anger and depression. Resigned and feeling alone, scared and anxious, resigned and no faith, feeling alone and worried, resigned and worried. Yeah, all right, you get the idea, okay? We know what our customers are going through. So there's an emotional toll, you know, and it's not a surprise, is there? There's a mental health crisis in this country, really. The other side of it is what's actually happening on the ground. And this is, again, just quotes from the team this week. Some people, mainly the elderly, are secluding themselves to one room as their house. They don't use much energy. One customer said the minute he puts his heating on, it eats away his credit, and he'd rather, I get so emotional at these bits, he'd rather save his energy for when his grandkids are over to keep them warm. I've been doing this for too long. I guess the point I'm making is that there is a massive problem in this country with poverty. We know that. But there's also hope. I think the work that we all do around benefiting checks and income maximisation and debt advice and community support and insulation and boiler replacement and emergency help and fuel vouchers and education and campaigning, everything we're doing is needed because it's such a wild problem. And I think all we can really do in these situations when there's gaps and there's experiences that people are having is to keep trying to get that support, keep trying to make a case for the welfare system to be better, for people to be treated with kindness and compassion and love. So yeah, please get on the Joseph Rowntree Foundation event next week. always feel free to drop into my LinkedIn, where we share letters from customers that have had, their incomes fully maximised. I'm a different kind of campaigner. I'm not really talking about essentials for this and essentials for that. I'm a bit ground down, but what I will talk about is life, and the fact that life is difficult for lots of people out there. So the fact that we're in this room together should give us enormous hope, because I think all we've got to do is to keep going. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Your passion really shines through and speaks very well of you. Unfortunately, Emma, you do have to follow that, though. So Emma Lewins comes from Students Organising for Sustainability. Often students are a group that could quite easily be overlooked, and they're one that we could identify as receiving gaps in the market. They've previously ran work on Homes Fit for Study, which is looking at the experiences of fuel poverty within student populations. So I'll introduce Emma now.
Thanks so much, Molly. Hi, everyone. Nice to see so many people in the room. I'm Emma from Students Organising for Sustainability, or SOS UK for short. So we are a student-led educational charity, and we were founded by the student movement, and so we work for them. I'm not a student myself. I do work full-time for SOS, but we do have student trustees and student staff, and we always try to make sure that what we're doing meets student demand. And so we've been working on projects on energy efficiency in the private rented sector for over 10 years now, one of them being Homes Fit for Study, as Molly mentioned. And one of our original flagship projects, which was almost 2 decades old now, supports students in halls to improve energy efficiency and energy literacy while students are still in their halls of residence. And then we had EU funding to sort of build on this and expand it out to the private rented sector, as well as across the EU. And so we continue to develop and build on that, and sort of also do lots of more research in this area, which led to Homes Fit for Study launching a few years ago. And so from that, we sort of ran these research sort of projects every couple of years. So our last one was from 2023. So I've got a few more stats for you, but hopefully not too boring. And so, one of them being 54% of students have experienced damp or mold in their home, which is above sort of the average UK citizen experiences. And 60% felt uncomfortably cold in their homes. So in terms of the question here around sort of students' experiences of winter, it's cold, and that's not necessarily correlating with actually the weather outside. It's just the fact that students are often not putting the heating on at all. And 48% said that this feeling of being uncomfortably cold affects their mental health. So we've talked a little bit about that already today, but it really has a direct impact on students' mental health and also physical health too, especially with sort of the damp and mold issues. We've had lots of students getting in touch with us around that, in the past few years. And 12% of students have been unable to pay their bills on final reminders. And so this is sort of when we're talking about the gap that exists in terms of sort of support that is available to students. A lot of them don't know what to do until it gets sort of a bit too late, and they don't know where to turn to necessarily. And so this kind of links a lot to the fact that students, it's often the first time that they are renting on their own, living outside the family home. And so there's a real knowledge gap in terms of experience of both housing in general, but also energy as well. Having said all that, students are not all the same, and so it's really important that we reflect on that not all students are 18, 19-year-olds. We have sort of mature students, we have students who are disabled, who have specific needs, we have student carers who also sort of have other responsibilities, and then we also have international students who are sort of trying to negotiate living in the UK for the first time, potentially, maybe in a second or third or fourth language, and sort of working out how heating systems work. So there's lots of different experiences within that group. And so, a big issue is that students are really inexperienced, so they don't really have the knowledge or understanding of how to sort of manage their bills and what their rights are as tenants, tariffs and that sort of thing. And there's also a real sort of norm that exists. I was talking earlier to people about how it's just seen as the norm that students have rubbish housing, and that's just kind of a thing. And it's kind of ridiculous that is the case, that people joke about having slugs in their room, or if they joke about the fact that, they've got black mold in their kitchen, and it's kind of seen as a joke, and it's very much the norm, and that shouldn't be the case. So there's a real high demand for student accommodation, as we all know. So there's a real rush to decide, and students often have to focus on cost and location and don't even consider energy efficiency at all. So that leads to poor quality accommodation being very, very rampant in the student accommodation sector. And yeah, it causes real issues. And so in terms of income as well, there's a real difference between the average student loan and rent in the UK at the moment is £24 a year, which leaves 50p a week for food and bills for students, which is ridiculous, and that's partially why you have that 12% unable to pay their final bills. So yeah, it's something that we see all the time. It's just getting worse and worse as the housing crisis is continuing, energy crisis is kind of still going, and students are still struggling to meet their needs. I think the income, sort of the loans they got hadn't gone up in terms of the interest rates nearly as much. So realistically, they've had cuts in their sort of income that they've received over the past few years. And students are, on top of that, often ineligible for benefits and support because they have to move around so much, and they're often excluded in statistics on fuel poverty. So there's lots of different factors all sort of coming together here in sort of a perfect storm. And like I was saying, it's kind of because it's such a norm that students are kind of experiencing this, and it is just so common. Students often don't feel the need to seek support. So it's the fact that sometimes the support isn't there, but also students don't know that they actually are in fuel poverty themselves. They don't recognise that within their living situation. And as tenancies are so short, you often are only in that house for a year maximum. Most people will just put up with those poor conditions, and then the issues just keep coming back and back for the next group of students that come into that accommodation. And so the impacts of this we see are huge ranging, and often it results in widening the inequality gap because we have students who can't afford to live in energy efficient properties, live in these sorts of properties, and then they have health impacts, for example, that are caused by the issues that we just talked about. So there's a big cycle that just exacerbates each other. But I wanted to end on some sort of positives, so some good practices that we've seen and that we're sort of trying to sort of create in the sector. So we really need to increase awareness with digital engagement and sort of face-to-face at housing fairs. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, trying to meet people where they're at. I love the idea of the bus stop test. That's a really interesting one. But yeah, having the idea of digital engagement. Everyone's on their phones, but students especially were on our phones all the time. So sort of using that technology, and then also being there at freshers fairs, housing fairs, that sort of thing. But also we want to, as a student-led organisation, we want to encourage students to sort of peer-to-peer upskilling. So with Home Fit for Study and an exciting new programme called SEAL, we are going to be sort of training up students to deliver audits of each other's accommodations to sort of share recommendations and sort of build that knowledge to one another. And then, like I was saying, SEAL is sort of launching now, very exciting. It's called Student Energy Action for Life. And we're looking at doing more of these audits, more training up students, but also training up staff and supporting students' unions with their campaigns. A lot of students' unions are doing really great work on accommodation, but not necessarily this intersection of energy and accommodation and housing. Hoping to support lots of students' unions and also build relationships with landlords and housing associations, which we want to make sure it's not just an us and them thing, but more of a dialogue. That's a very quick overview. But thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, everyone. So, as I said at the start, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I'll address one to each of you, but please do feel free to add to each other's answers and kind of have that discussion. And then we will have plenty of time for the audience to ask as many questions as possible. So I'm a stickler for fairness. I'm going to go back to Dave. It's been a while since you've spoken now. So can you talk a little bit about the logistics of actually reaching these vulnerable, marginalised communities? I really like what you're saying about the bus test, and we've talked previously about your service being available for support workers, so you can address sort of digital literacy, English as a second language, all those other things. But in terms of logistics, how do you get to people? What works and what doesn't? Can you talk a little bit about your future plans there?
Yes, that's a good question. And it's probably a few different layers to it. So first of all, it's all to do with our partnerships. So A lot of people hear about Lightning Reach through the partners we work with. Some of them are in this room, for example, whereby they might refer people to Lightning Reach, or if they are working with particularly vulnerable clients who aren't digitally enabled, then support workers can go onto Lightning Reach on behalf of their clients to then still enable them to access those services as well. At Lightning Reach, they're not a, so for example, I see S&G in the room, they're not an S&G tenant at Lightning Reach, they're a Lightning Reach user. And so what that means from our own kind of data protection side of things is that we can then weave them to other support as well. So whether they come from a referral from S&G or from some other partners like OVO Energy or the Royal British Legion, ultimately they're a Lightning Reach user who we can then connect with other support as well. So it means we're kind of able to then connect them to additional support. So they're not engaging in one thing, we can help them to engage in many. And then once they come into Lightning Reach, we can then proactively target those individuals based on the data we know. So, for example, 69% of our Lightning Reach users are struggling with energy costs. Of those, we know about 78% are in social housing, 77% are single-parent households, but then also interesting data, like 72% are homeowners with a mortgage and struggling with interest rates at the moment as well. So then how do we then use that data to then work with other partners to then reach and engage those individuals? Because then we have gone through that process of capturing the necessary consents for SMS, WhatsApp, email, so then we can use that as a tool for engagement and funneling back into us as well.
Perfect. Lee, I wanted to ask the next question to you. So when looking on your site, you have a page that says no hurdle too high, no form too long, which I think is what every service aspires to be. And I guess my question for you was, this winter, obviously, there was a huge campaign around pension credit linked to the winter fuel payments. And services like yours will have bore the brunt of hopefully the campaign being successful, but then you've obviously got to deal with the demand that comes with it. I guess I wondered what lessons you had took away from that experience and what you would want to say to policymakers about when they make a change, how that does impact vulnerable communities then are supported by the third sector.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, I'm long enough in the tooth to know really that this is something that sometimes people need. Vulnerable people need proper support. You know, they need forms filled out, they need phone calls with DWP. They need to be stepped through the benefit calculation properly because sometimes you need to claim one thing before another kicks in, and it's a complicated system. It's always been that way, you know. So, and I think really, I suppose, like lessons for this year is that I think we should just be careful of not putting all our eggs in one basket with tech. Because me and Dave, we were talking about AI and IncomeMAX. We've built Max, our little AI chatbot that's starting to, there's me talking about humans, but I went back to Oxford University and was like, yeah, let's find out about AI. You know, I think AI is going to have an incredible impact on the advice sector, being able to kind of take some of the load, you know, because it is difficult to find staff. It is difficult to train someone as a benefits advisor. Do you know what I mean? Like, these things take time, especially if you want to do it properly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it was kind of business as usual for us, the same as it was like post-pandemic, you know, and post the financial crash when I first started IncomeMAX. You know, I don't expect anything to change in the future as it stands. I think we will always have quite a complicated system that sometimes tech will work really well, and it's brilliant. You can create tech solutions, but also sometimes you need that human voice and that human support to step someone through. And I think with pensioners in particular, I think it can be really useful to talk things through, like, I'll get benefits geeky now, but attendance allowance and obviously pension credit and, you know, housing benefit for pensioners. I'll stop there, but you get what I'm trying to say. So I think the key thing for partners who are looking to commission services is human and tech, you know, just making sure that you're thinking really carefully about that. Please support local organisations, because that's my grassroots. I'm national now, but I wasn't always. I was barking Dagenham in my little Fiesta, doing my thing, you know. So please don't, if there's local organisations here, I just want to say I see you. And, you know, it would be great for national partners to be supporting grassroots charities and organisations as well, because that's really sometimes where the deep sort of anti-poverty, face-to-face human stuff really goes on at local level.
Just to quickly add to that, we work with some like advice services that have got like 40% increase in referrals year on year. And ultimately what happens is that people have a 3-month waiting list to get help. But often some of those people, and going back to what Lee was saying, that kind of interface between tech and the human element, both can work really nicely together. If you can enable tech to enable people to help themselves, actually they just need a 20-minute, 30-minute self-help to point in the right direction, that then frees up that time so that the people who are and have quite a complex case can spend that time with the advisor is so important to be able to segment the different support offers for those different individuals as well.
Brilliant, thanks both. I think walking that tightrope between referring people to self-help and signposting and getting on the phone with them and knowing where you can draw that line is so tough, and we're always trying to do it. During our Women Communities project, we also found that it was a lot about who's going to deliver the message and how will you deliver the message. Should it even come from us? Should it come from a trusted partner or an outside third body? Should suppliers be involved? And where should it take place? Should it be in a presentation hall, or should it be in groups of 3 or 4? So you have to really rethink kind of the way projects are structured to be very kind of impactful. Emma, I wanted to ask you more about the student experience. So I think students, because they cover such a huge amount, as you mentioned in your words, students cover a huge variety of experiences, some of which are very much not vulnerable. And I think that lends them sort of an invisibility, and they therefore don't become part of the conversation when we're talking about how should policies be run for private housing, for energy security. They don't factor necessarily into the way suppliers think about vulnerability. So I guess I wondered if you could talk to kind of that invisibility and what impact you feel like it has.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because I think my question was actually read out earlier today in the main session around sort of about young people's experiences, which was great. Love the answer, but it wasn't actually about young people that I was thinking about. It was about the sort of students and children. So even in that sort of setting, it's kind of just a bit of an invisible area there. So yeah, we definitely see this. I think definitely in sort of the cost of living crisis, we saw a lot of universities doing a lot more work on providing some sort of support for their students in terms of having like specific funds that are available that students could apply for. Students' unions and universities were doing great work, but on their individual level, and there was a real range of what support was available for different universities and different students' unions and how well that's communicated. And so I think often there is some support there, but it varies so much across the country, and it's not always linked up in terms of understanding, like learning best practice from one another. And so that's one thing that we're hoping to do with the new Project Seal, is we're going to try and connect students' unions together to both sort of create a campaign that we can sort of roll out nationally, but also that students' unions can talk to each other a bit more and sort of hopefully learn from each other and learn best practice, so that then they can sort of increase efficiencies, because we also appreciate that universities are also struggling at the moment in terms of their incomes have been cut with reduced international students able to come into the country. So there are limitations on sort of what support there can be through those sort of areas at the moment. But yeah, we're hoping that we can increase efficiencies that way. And then, yeah, in terms of more broadly, I think it is just really difficult for students to access any sort of benefit. And there is a real lack of understanding, I think, around like what they're eligible for. And especially I remember back in terms of when the energy crisis hit, there was a whole conversation around can students claim for the energy bill so they could get some back? Could they get it back as a household? Was it per person? That was a whole conversation that was happening that wasn't really addressed at the time, and it took many months for that to ever get resolved. So yeah, lots of issues there.
Perfect. I'm just checking. Do we have a second mic?
Yes, there is.
Yes, we
I'm
do.
not sure whether there's a member of the NEA staff available.
Yes. I was going to say, if Leo, Dave, you want to add anything about kind of any invisible communities that you're aware of, and if anyone in the audience is starting to think about questions, now's the time. Put your hand up. Laura's got the mic, so she'll be coming round. Oh, we've got a question straight away.
Hi, yeah, one for yourself, Emma. So I run National Support Network. It's a directory of different support services to help people financial and non-financial as well. And so what you were saying there about students knowing what they're eligible for and so on, would you recommend any specialist resources or services that are designed for students to specifically understand what they're eligible for and what energy support is available for them?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have some resources that we've created ourselves, but it's not our specialist areas, like in terms of like benefits and like funding. So we have got some stuff on our website that I can talk to you about later. But in terms of other areas, I think probably the NUS is probably the best place to go to, the National Union of Students. They often have funds that are more national. Otherwise, it would just be the universities, I think, that I know of that do lots of more local stuff.
Thank you.
I think my question is to the two gentlemen. I'm from Search Newcastle, and my clients are all 50 and over, and about 80% of them are more of the analog era rather than the digital era. What is your perception of AI and online filling the forms and that sort of help against a face-to-face and being able to pick up the vulnerability and other issues that they won't be able to portray going online, filling in a PIP form? When I go in, I'm a benefits advisor and an energy advisor, and I fuse the two together. So when there's an energy debt, I know there's a consumer debt. I know that there's other elements in the home that I can see visually. With AI going online, what is your sort of projection of how many will get lost through all this modernization of going online?
I'll give it to you after, Dave. I think I'm going to guess that Dave and I are probably advocating for blended services that meet the user's need. You know, I don't think it's all tech, it's all human. There's a combination now that can be used. You know, I value humans greatly. I think there's a heart thing. There's a heart piece, clearly. Like, I can't even get through a speech these days. But it's like, you know, a human can provide something that technology can't, in a way of a voice, a warmth, emotion, and just being there for somebody. Plus also, listen, you know, AI is only trying to replicate human intelligence, general intelligence, right? It's like humans are incredible, absolutely incredible. The work it's taken to try and get robots to like pick up a pen. We're all here walking, talking, breathing and doing incredible work. So listen, humans are absolutely incredible. So for me, I think what I'm hoping is a bit like what Dave was saying, and hopefully not stealing your thunder here, Dave, but it's just that like there is room for humans and tech moving forward, and actually humans have the ability to start doing what they really do well, which is to listen, have empathy, have care, have special skills that you know, your computer can spit out a lovely picture, and if we're all using ChatGPT or similar for productivity, I'm sure, but don't lose your heart and don't lose your soul, because humans are what make this world really special, I think, and I'm glad I erred on the side of humans. I was going to be called benefitcheck.com, can you believe it? Anyway, we're IncomeMAX now, and we've got a lot of staff, so yeah, keep on doing what you're doing, and don't lose sight of the value of humans, and if anything, I'm hoping more space will be created for us to create more and more human services which make a difference. That's my hope, anyway.
Yeah, beautifully put. And I think just to add to it, but there's also that there will be digital pathways that people can navigate themselves. Like, that just will be the case. And it's like, how do you make sure you've designed it in such a way that just enables it to be used really effectively and easily? So again, going back to like, you know, at Lightning Reach, our oldest person that's used it has been 103. It is incredibly easy to navigate if you've got a low level of digital literacy, because it's been designed with the user at the heart of that journey. Very simple language, very big buttons, not too many questions on one page. It should be very simple to navigate. It should be able to be done on the bus, you know, and we're competing against printing off paper to write it down, to scan it. Like, if you're thinking about what we're competing against, it's not easy processes anyway. And again, there will be times when the human intervention is much, much, much better, but actually it goes to the heart of the bus test again. Like, if someone's trying to navigate your website and it's not mobile optimized in a very simple way, then of course it's going to be hard to navigate as well. So I think also just making sure that the users that are using it are at the heart of your design process to make sure that it's an easy journey to navigate. And then with that time of people who are going through that self-serve journey, there will be, like Lee said, the time freed up where is going to have deeper conversations with people that really do need that support as well, and like freeing up resource to be able to really equip to have better conversations too.
Hi, sorry, hiding away down here. I'm Maeve from the utility regulator in Northern Ireland. A big thing for us that we're noticing is engagement levels. And I'm thinking specifically speaking to electricity suppliers who have a lot of advice there that they want to give, a lot of support there that's available, but it's really getting consumers to engage with them and sort of a you don't know what you don't know type of scenario. So, we're trying to do some work in that area at the minute. I was just wondering, had you any advice on increasing engagement, getting those people out there and contacting you?
I can start on that. We basically just always go to where the students are at. So with a student sort of specific audience, we are going to go to their freshers fairs because we know that almost all students will be going to that freshers fair trying to get all the freebies, and we're going to be there waiting to have a chat with them. And often it is, you're right, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And so we'll have really interesting conversations where people might have not even considered that sort of topic before. So freshers fairs, housing fairs, places where students are going to be at is often the best thing to do when it's face to face. And then sort of in terms of other ways, that's why we're sort of partnering with students' unions and universities. So we'll try and sort of engage people digitally as well. So we try and sort of use Instagram and TikTok where students are already online and very much trying to reach them where they're at. And so hopefully the students' unions will, they might follow them to find out about the club nights going on. They might also see some energy advice, and hopefully they'll take that on board.
And just from our point of view, I guess it's going back to that trust point. There'll be so many partners that you work with that have probably got better trust, whether it's a community organisation or other kind of resources that have got that relationships to tap into. And maybe just from our own example of we've worked with Link Housing in Scotland, who are a housing association with about 10,000 properties. And in 2023, they went through quite a few eviction processes with single males who just did not engage in their advice services and ultimately would have still been in their home if they had. So we did a test from our point of view. We texted about 295 people of this specific cohort at Lightning Reach Link at 2 p.m. And by 4 p.m, 30 people would sign up and engage and support Lightning Reach. And those are 30 people that never would have chatted to their own in-house advice services. Now, that advice service team meets with about 2,000 people a year. They're a really, really good team that provide amazing support, but it was just that certain demographic they weren't able to tap into. And so, again, we're just an extension of that team and that digital pathway for those individuals to engage with that support as well. So it's not kind of a one-size-fits-all, but it's many different ways to engage people in the way that they want to be met, I think.
I mean, this one might be for a bit of if anyone's interested in sort of long-term partnerships, because obviously 15 years, the whole point of IncomeMAX is we partner with organisations who don't just fund us, but they send us the customers to help as well. So it's not like we're kind of sitting there, drumming our fingers on the desk waiting for someone to call us. No way, Jose. We get incredible amounts of customer data coming through where we then proactively are calling those customers. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to say there. First of all, if you're partnering with organisations that are going to send you customers, they've got to be fully committed to developing those routes for referral. They've got to be able to, I'm thinking about, OVO, EDF, they send us thousands of customers a year. So they had to create ways for customers to know about us and to get consent for that referral. Now that takes work internally within EDF, within OVO, within Agility Eco, with whoever it is that we're working with. Those organisations need to be absolutely committed to, getting you the referrals. And in a lot of ways, you've got to be a bit strong and a bit strict about it. And you have to, even this year, it's been a hard winter, but some partners have not been able to get all the customers through to us that they want. And we're like, can you get us more? Can you get us more? So listen, partners have to sort of work really hard there as well. But then saying that, what we do is we do a lot of work to help those organisations understand what a good customer looks like. So it's a single parent, it's a carer, it's a disabled person, it's a pensioner, so on and so forth. We train teams, we do a lot of champions training so that people become IncomeMAX champions within those organisations. And I tell you what you can do is you can create an incredible loop where cases are not just, oh, it's an IncomeMAX case, but actually it's an IncomeMAX and OVO case, or it's an IncomeMAX and Agility Eco case, or it's an IncomeMAX and e-gas and electric case, or whatever. We celebrate those successes together. Now, part of that is to do with getting your impact together and knowing what impact you're having, measuring it well, and telling your story well. Sorry, that is a long answer, but we've been doing this a long time. So if you're developing partnerships and want to know sort of how we kind of made this stuff really work, drop us a hello on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
While we wait for another hand up, I thought I would ask a question to you guys. So we've talked a lot about where sport exists and where it doesn't, where we might need to plug a gap, but where actually we might need to get people to the support that's already there. I wonder if any of the three of you have any thoughts on, so we've talked about bureaucracy and who should deliver the message and the complications of getting support. I wonder if any of you can talk about stigma and how that plays an impact in getting support, particularly in crisis moments over the colder months, and how your organisations have sort of met that challenge and any kind of learnings you have for that. It's a big question, I appreciate, but if anyone has any thoughts. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just get it out of the way because you know what it's going to be. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? No, I was trying to put my coat over the top of it, but I asked my little daughter today for a Rubik's Cube. She's 10, like, cute, you know. It's like, you got a Rubik's Cube in your bedroom? Of course she did. Anyway, I was going to show you it, but that's sometimes what it makes me feel like the system's a little bit like. It's, you know, you push something one way and something else shifts, and you push something else one way and it shifts again. And I was just sort of like, one of the things I didn't mention earlier was just around that puzzle, because you've got like citizens and how we feel about things in society. You've got government and their budget constraints. You've got the media and how that plays out, left, right, centre, you know, whatever that's supposed to do. You've got business, you've got the planet, you've got people's values, you've got the markets, you've got traders, like the economy. It's like, it really is, in an ideal world, you'd give everyone all of the resources that they would have, but it's like, this is the stuff that not keeps me awake overnight, but definitely wakes me up early in the morning when I start writing, because it's like, how do we really solve this? Because life's based around work, and then we retire, Department of Work and Pensions, yeah, it's like, it's there in the title. So how do you make social security work in the modern world? How do you sort of overcome citizen sort of like issues around like benefit stigma, right? Around like, is the benefit system a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it depends who you are and what your experiences of it are. You know, you can jump in 3 different black cabs and each black cabbie will tell you a different view. Some will be compassionate, some will be, get back to work. You know what I'm saying? So I think like we really are, I think sometimes we lose sight of the emotional, the policy, the human stuff that is sort of, in a lot of ways, is a barrier to making progress, because what we do know is that just giving everyone everything that they need isn't going to happen anytime soon in this current world. So, you know, that's why things like universal basic income become interesting and stuff like that. But listen, I'm going off topic a little bit, but I guess I wanted to get you guys thinking about, if you're confused, it's all right to be confused, because people, there is stigma, there are views, there are issues that we're trying to work with, which we can't, no government, no influencer, no policymaker can quite get that Rubik's Cube with all of the colours in the right place.
Yeah, just on the stigma side of it, I was going to say that I think university sometimes can be a bit of a kind of a microverse of what's happening on a wider scale. So you often have within one halls of residence, for example, a huge range of inequalities represented in that sort of small space. I always remember when I was at university, I was asked where I went to school, and I was like, I don't think you'll have heard of I went to school, but I didn't realise until later on they were asking if I went to one of these schools, you know, one of the private ones. So it's yeah, you do have a real range of incomes, and I think that's what you often see in the student space, is that you see students trying to share a house where there's a lot of range of incomes in that house, within that household, and so there's a lot of stigma where students can't afford to live with their friends, for example, and they have to sort of try and up their budget to try and be in the same house as their friends, and then they have to try and afford the bills, and then actually you might have one student in that household who's really, really struggling, and they have a lot of stigma around that, whereas the other students are actually fine in the household, they don't see the issue. And so I think that's, from the stigma side of it, that's a real issue that we see a lot of the time in the student space.
Yeah, just to add to that, I guess also a lot of people don't think that support's for them. Like often they think it's for someone else that's worse off than them. It's kind of educating people to actually know that support is literally for you. And then again, kind of going back to that, I go back to what Luke told me. He was that military veteran, and he was street homeless, and he still at that point really struggled to ask for help. And for him, he actually liked a more anonymous way of engaging in support, and it was that first step of being able to kind of refer himself in. Then he got swooped up by the Royal British Legion and the RAF Benevolent Fund, who housed him, got stuff for his pregnant girlfriend, and sorted stuff out for the baby. But it was that first step that was often the hardest thing to do. And once he was in, he was in. So yeah, I think it's just enabling people to recognise that support literally is for you. And then again, providing different routes to allow people to, very discreetly, or the way that they want to engage with you.
I think we've got someone at the back.
Hi, Sian Whiteman, New Ground Together. Mine is for Dave, really. I know you said earlier about that if you've got support workers, that they can actually go online and help the customers. And I just wondered, do we have to register with yourself to be a referral partner, or can we just go on?
Yeah, you can email me at dave@lightningreach.org, and I will sort you out.
There's question at the front here.
Thank you. I work with many of these people that you're talking about. I work with a lot of the people. I work with Gypsy Traveller community. I work with the homeless. I work with the elderly and the veterans. And it is all of the things you've put together. And it is a combination, definitely, that I feel I like to do everything as much as I can face to face, because I'm old school. And to get that connection with the person, to let them to go that next step. As Dave just said, that chap needed to do it through technology, which is great for him, and if it works, fantastic. But there is that they already feel they have some level of stigma about whatever it might be, and then we're just sticking another one on there thinking, well, hey, you're part of that community, but you can't afford your bills either, can you? And it's like we're stacking those things on top of each other. And if you can start to move some of them a little bit, they feel more comfortable with wanting to ask. And if someone just there to listen, you possibly won't have the answers to everything, but the fact is you can say, well, we're here, and just show that there are people like yourselves that are able to, and everybody in the room, we all know there's those people where we suddenly hear the thing and that, well, actually, that was amazing because you've done just a little something, but it's made such a huge difference, and that's important for all of us, isn't it?
Frank, such a beautifully made point, and obviously, we're lots of us are going to be allies in this room, which I think is fantastic. But I just wanted to just sort of back up that point, because sometimes we talk about gaps and we always think it's money or it's services or it's a thing. And so if you guys follow me on the old LinkedIn, I bore everyone every day with lots of handwritten letters that we get from customers. So hopefully you won't be too bored, but you will eventually think, oh my God, Lee, not another one. But we get these really beautiful handwritten letters from customers because I think it's a human service. But what's really fascinating, right, there's me going 50 million and blah, blah, blah. They never, ever thank us for the money. They always thank us for listening. Thank you for the patience. Thank you for the phone calls. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've just finishing my first book. I don't know if it'll ever come out. I don't even know if it's any good. But it's like the story of IncomeMAX and all of the different customers that we've been helping. And the front cover is just all of these handwritten letters, because to me, it's the best asset I've ever had. I've just got hundreds of them. And the point I guess I'm making is that sometimes the gaps in support is to do with listening, being heard, being supported, being loved. Do you know what I mean? So thanks for everything you're doing and everybody that does this on a human level, because I think if we come out of anything today, we've realised that there's a lot of love, a lot of respect, a lot of compassion and kindness in this room and every room that I travel about, in the UK and I'm able to talk about these days. And that you can have love in tech and you can have love in humans, but the point is we're all trying to do the same thing. So never lose sight of those important skills, which I think make a really big difference to people.
I'm just going to corroborate what you were saying there, Lee, with we too, when we have feedback from clients, the focus is often on how we've made them feel as a human being. We give out winter warm support packs, which are there for kind of small scale measures. And one bit of feedback that's always stuck out to me in that scenario is someone saying, I've never received anything new. It was like my birthday. And that was the impact. Not, yay, this is worth something, or my bills will go down. Of course, that's what the intention was, but the feeling was, I felt kind of love from someone. So I think that was just a corroborate on that. I thought, oh, Laura's moved around.
Oh, hiya, I'm right here. So my name's Amna. I work as an energy advisor at the Centre for Sustainable Energy. So a large portion of our clients who call in are either asylum seekers, refugees, or people from non-English speaking communities. And I was just wondering if any of you had any experience engaging with them, because they do tend to be a harder sort of community to reach. And the second half was just targeted towards Lee. I know you mentioned engaging with ex-military. So we do have clients, a small but significant portion of them are ex-military. And obviously, we're an energy advice charity, so we do often feel ill-equipped to give them financial advice. So any shout-outs to any charities that sort of, offer that kind of advice, specifically for ex-military, would be really appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you. So ex-military and refugees, asylum seekers.
Fantastic. Okay, I've got some really exciting stuff to tell you about tech. Okay, so, obviously we're building Max. So Max is a built on ChatGPT technology, and it can take customer details currently. This thing can speak 50 languages. It's unbelievable, right? So our developers, not only does it, so you can say to it, can you speak in Spanish, please? Although you'd probably say that in Spanish, and I have no language skills whatsoever. And it just reverts straight away. So it follows the same path, the same customer journey, takes all the customer's details, but it does it all in Spanish. Not only does it all then do that in Spanish or 49 other languages, it translates that into English into our Salesforce. So it's not like my staff giving, oh my God, there's a Spanish one. They actually just go, yep, cheers. The customer spoke in Spanish, but the AI translated it all into English, ready for the advisor. That's incredible, right? So I can see a time in a few years where language really won't be a barrier, which is so exciting. And I think AI, that's something to get really excited about, because from an accessibility perspective, that's well cool. I'm from the days where we used to have to get leaflets translated into 50 languages or whatever. So, and we know that obviously things like language line and so on and so forth have existed for a long time. So translation still has its place, but I'm excited about AI. Just on charities, obviously you've got SAFA, you've got Royal British Legion, so please create links. There are other smaller charities and different charities, but if you start with SAFA and Royal British Legion, create links there, referral pathways. I'm sure that the military charities will be really pleased to support. If you need any help facilitating that, give us a shout.
Yeah, just to add, we work with quite a few military charities and Lightning Reach where you can apply directly. So Lightning Reach is free to use for any end user. So you can signpost any of your clients to Lightning Reach, and you can use it on Google Chrome and then translate it to a different language that suits them as well.
We have a question in the front here. I got some Jedi mind. Laura, did you not say you had a question? Oh, yeah. You just started looking behind you. I thought...
Getting you at it. Hello, so I'm Laura. I work for National Energy Action. So at NEA, we have a really exciting program at the moment, Warmer Homes, Healthy Futures, who my colleague Danielle, I think, is going to talk about tomorrow at conference. But the point of that program is to kind of target support at people who have disabilities or health conditions that are impacted by cold homes. And I just wondered for each of you how your work kind of overlaps with health status, either of kind of your clients or indeed any referral partners, and how they might be using data or knowledge of health status to target support, and if you could speak to that at all on your experience.
Do you want to go down the line, or does anyone have a...
Yeah, just in terms of that, I think we work closely with the NUS, National Union of Students, and they have a disabled students network, and so we often will work directly with them to sort of make sure that what we're doing meets the needs of disabled students. And then when we're sort of doing our regular surveys and things, we always ask around disabilities, especially, just to make sure, again, that we're sort of collecting that data and making sure that we're, informed by what's actually happening on the ground, basically. So, we try and make sure that we're always informed by what's happening, and obviously we'll always listen to students as well, like when we're doing face-to-face visits and that sort of thing, we do try and make sure that we're sort of taking on board the comments that we get, on the ground as well. But yeah, probably something that we need to continue to do throughout.
So for us, when someone goes onto Lightning Reach and completes a profile, we understand if they or any of their member of the household has a disability and then what that might then be as well. So we can then use that data to be able to, again, target people with relevant support that we think might be most appropriate for them and their need. So that's one kind of practical thing. And then also we have a lot of social prescribers at the NHS using Lightning Reach who might be, working with like health and housing to be able to then engage those individuals to find additional financial support in Lightning Reach as well. So it's kind of two ends of the different spectrum there.
Yeah, possibly my favourite question. Obviously, been working around disability since the disability charity that I worked at when I first left DSS or DWP was DABD. Shout out to them, Disability Association, Barking and Dagenham. So if you come across DABD, amazing organisation. Spent so many years there. Met Steph, my wife. Yep. So she was sending a fax. That's a story for another time. But anyway. But I just wanted to say that obviously disability is and health is just huge when it comes to poverty. It's reading the DWP and House of Commons briefing yesterday. We know that ill health, disability, child disability, caring for someone is a huge indicator of poverty. We know that it's incredibly difficult to get the benefits that you need as a disabled person. Certainly your personal independence payments or your Scottish equivalents, attendance allowance or your Scottish equivalents. We know that just even getting universal credit to work properly for someone who has a disability or a health issue, it can be incredibly difficult. So, I would like to see, and I think there's always been, a want in this country to help people with disabilities and health issues, but we need to go further because I think a lot of disabled people and people with health issues feel like they've been under attack for the last decade, since 2010 really, when, the axe got taken to the welfare system. It's time for that to be repaired, but I don't see that coming down the line anytime soon. Actually, I see a firming up in government of wanting to, we will change disability benefits. We will give someone a one-off grant rather than PIP. What are you talking about? It's just insane. So, I think we welcome any project that's putting the needs of disabled people and people with health issues at the heart of it. Obviously, just there's some amazing disability charities, Disability Rights UK and MenCap and all of the amazing sort of disability charities out there. They need our love, they need our support. But the most important thing, I think, is that disabled people, because of their risk of poverty, because of the influence that disability and health has on poverty, we need our disabled and sick population to be getting all of the financial help and support that they need. So I think income maximisation, debt advice, etc., all that's going to become really important over the next year.
Hello, hi. My name's Sarah. I work at Citizens Advice up in Gateshead. I'm just wondering, are you aware of any minority groups of people who aren't accessing your services? And do you have any kind of method or strategies to make sure they're aware of what you do and they can trust you and approach you?
So in terms of our work with SEAL, it's started this month, so we're very, very fresh. And we're going to be working, like I said, with the Disabled Students Network, but also there's a Black Students Network as well that we're going to try and target, as well as students taking action for refugees. STAR, there's a student group there that work with refugees who are also students. And so I think we're trying to start off our work by already trying to reach not just the usual suspects, in terms of just trying to make sure that we're kind of, making sure that we're getting a real diversity of people engaged from the beginning. I think with our work in the past, we actually tend to engage higher proportion of international students, which is interesting. I think it might be just because how we frame it as a sort of learning opportunity, and so sometimes that's of interest maybe for more international students. But we're going to try and make sure that we're kind of matching the proportions that are actually out there in the real world.
Just a massive shout out to two of our partners, British Gas Energy Trust and SGN. Both of those guys have taken real steps to understanding needs within smaller community groups and smaller, organisations that perhaps provide support for minority groups. That's really good news for someone like IncomeMAX, where you do actually need a proper partnership to send people our way. We're not like a step change, or we don't get this central government funding or something where we go, send everyone to us. You've noticed I've not said, please send people to us, because actually you need to go through your energy company or your building society or whatever. That's our funding model. That stops us getting overwhelmed, and it means that we've got the capacity to be able to deal, with the customers that come our way. But what's brilliant is that organisations like BGET and SGN and their support for smaller organisations mean that we can almost create consortium-style partnerships where smaller groups can refer into us as kind of part of the bigger picture and the wider picture. So I think just to sort of, I think sometimes perhaps if you're a local organisation or whatever, you might think, these things get snaffled up by big, and I used to be one of those. I'd be a local organisation, think, everything goes to that big organisation. I think these days there's an understanding that there's room for national, local, smaller groups, community groups and all that stuff. We're a great diverse sector and we should be celebrating that, absolutely. But there are organisations that are supporting smaller groups, thankfully, which I think is a really good sign.
Yeah, maybe just to add on it. So we over-index for minority groups on Lightning Reach versus ONS statistics. However, I think what we can then do with that Lightning Reach users to engage those individuals to services that can then help them is always something that we need to be mindful of. And I think it goes back to that trust point as well of ensuring that we're working with services that can have that trust with those individuals and engaging them in a way that, again, they can trust to then engage in those services as well. But I think it's a journey, right? We're kind of continue building that as well.
We're going to go to our final question in the room now, just to keep being on time. I'll just ask if when you do answer this question, if you can also add any calls to action that you have, any learnings that you think, if you take one thing away from this session for winter 25-26, what would it be? So I'll go next to the speaker in the room and we'll end on that note.
Oh, hi. I'm not sure if I should take this space. It's not really a question, something quick I wanted to share. It's Paola from Center for Sustainable Energy as well. There is a big gap, not so much in advice, but support for people like us, sort of the middle class sort of people who work full time and don't feel the criteria into any of those sort of the criteria that the clients that we work with. So just after the pandemic, we identified that it could be really useful for our own colleagues to know what financial support is available. And when we shared that, then we realized a lot of people were actually accessing that because we removed that stigma around people like me cannot access a fuel voucher fund, fuel voucher or whatever. So, I think the more we are in touch with that reality as well, we are better able to support our client group and to understand what they go through.
I think that's definitely relevant. It's a group where we have a gap of provisioning. So if you could please address that point, and then, like I say, any calls for action for winter 25-26 that you would take away.
Interestingly, we ran a very sort of a pilot project after the Home Fit for Study, which was aimed at upskilling university staff, which again very much fit that definition a lot of the time. And we actually got students to trained up to then deliver audits to staff in terms of assessing their homes and seeing if they're energy efficient. And we had a lot of interest from members of staff from across different universities to access that, because like you were saying, with the energy crisis and cost of living crisis, there's a real need for it from all different types of people. We definitely see that at SOS. And just to wrap up, I think one thing that I'd like everyone to take away would be just to not see student housing as a rite of passage. I don't think we should all have to live in awful accommodation for a few years for no reason. And if there's any people who'd like to work with us on our new Project C, or to just come and say hi or add me on LinkedIn, and we can talk about that.
Just adding that, I think, going back to our data, so 72% of people struggling with energy costs on Lightning Reach are homeowners with a mortgage. They fall, below the kind of warm home discount income threshold. They think there's no support out there. So again, it's just making sure that we can still connect those individuals with support that can help them. And like you say, being honest about it to each other, and kind of removing those awkward barriers that sometimes come with discussing our vulnerabilities as well, I think is really powerful. My call to action would just be, if you want to reach and engage more clients to some fantastic support, please get in touch, because we are looking to grow really quickly this year, and we want to double the amount of people we're helping this year to about 350,000 people. So if you want to work with us, please drop me a line at dave@lightningreach.org, and I would love to have a chat with you.
Yeah, just on that point around working households, so between 6 and 8.1 million working households experiencing poverty. So, I mean, for me, I'm a bit political these days, aren't I? But, this idea around, get people back to work, and if you work, it'll all be all right. We know that that's not always just the case, It's expensive to live, and I'm not anti-work, by the way. I love work. I think, work is amazing, and everyone should be able to, hopefully sort of achieve their potential with work, but also people need support, because life gets in the way, and all the things that we've talked about today. My call to action is just to say to you guys that you count, you matter. Every single thing that you're doing, if you're installing boilers, if you're doing loft insulation, if you're doing a benefit check, if you're running an organisation, if you're creating partnerships, if you're providing debt advice, if you're creating tech that makes a difference, if you're supporting students with their housing, if you're providing education, if you care about this stuff, you're amazing. So thanks for being here today. And all I would say is, connect with me if you want to hear me keep on rambling on about it, because there is I actually feel genuinely blessed these days that there is like a movement of people that care. So thanks for caring, keep caring, and let's just try and keep some hope, because it might seem like the world's a grim place, and in lots of ways it is for lots of people, but every time we do something, I think it's a little extra thing that goes into a drop of an ocean, and hopefully, it becomes a bit of a better world for us all. Thanks.
You've done it again. You're impossible to follow. How do I end now? Just to say thank you all so much for coming. Please do grab I'm offering yourselves. Grab our speakers to have a chat in the exhibition room, but I think we're going through now, and we have a break until 4 o'clock. Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone.